right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. This is a business episode all about helping people run successful, sustainable, small and medium-sized businesses in the lawn and garden industry in Australia. So if that's not your thing and you're looking for tips and tricks on how to maintain lawns and stuff, we have those episodes. It's just not one of these ones. But if you are going to be running a successful lawn and garden business, that's your goal. This is going to be one of the best podcasts, I think, out there. Certainly one of the best ones that I've done, because we have Geoff McPhee from McPhee's Gardening Services. There's a lot of vanity numbers you can have on the internet these days. How many Instagram followers you've got, how many YouTube followers you've got, how many clients you've got, how many employees you've got. Okay, a lot of the time that's just vanity numbers. They show off numbers. Do you know what a real number is? How many years have you been in business and you're still loving life? You still love the business. You still love the industry. Geoff has got 35 years running a business. This isn't a vanity number. This is a real world number. And look, there's nothing that you've ever dealt with a client that Geoff himself hasn't always dealt with, hasn't already dealt with. He's got a huge wealth of experience. So it's a really, really helpful podcast, super helpful. And Geoff, he's not this old fuddy-duddy who's stuck in his ways. Not at all. We talk about that. He's using, he's probably charging more than you. He's probably using some better equipment than you. He knows what he's doing. And so this is a really helpful podcast. It could have gone on for much, much longer if I wasn't so disorganized in when we started it. Anyways, let's get into it. I really enjoyed it. I hope you really enjoy it too. And I hope there's some people on here that this could be a really life-changing, and I mean that, podcast, because maybe there's some tips and tricks in this podcast that are really going to help you take your business to the next level. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, welcome to today's podcast. Believe it or not, this is take 3 of an introduction. We've had a rough time getting this in. We have Geoff McPhee from is McPhee's Gardening Services, isn't it, Geoff?
That's right, yes.
And this is going to be a really fun podcast. This is one of the business episodes. We're going to talk about all things business, all things gardening, all things life with Geoff, because he is one of the most experienced contractors in Australia, 35 years. But he's not only just 35 years as a contractor. He sent me a photo. We'll look at this in a minute. You've been mowing lawns or slashing blocks for how long, Geoff? Like, when was your first paid gig, you told me?
It's a long, long time ago. Actually, my first paid gig was prior to 88. It was when I was 16. We used our farm tractor. I probably sent you a photo of our Ferguson 65 horsepower Perkins diesel 6-foot slasher we used. And let's put that on the screen
right now. There it is.
Now,
in all its glory.
We didn't have, there's no roll bars on it because we didn't have to have them in those days. But we still haven't got them on to this day, but it never goes off the property. But yeah, that was my introduction to lawn mowing, slashing when I was 16. So that's actually 50 years ago. But
50 years.
Well, 52 actually, because I'm 68 coming this year. But
52 years experience in some form of garden maintenance.
Yes. Well, that's right. And of course, during that time, our family had nursery, plant nursery, my grandparents, and so I've always been involved a little bit in the gardening over the time. So, but that wasn't my profession, of course, when I left school. Yeah.
But this is amazing because you've got. I mean, I feel like I'm an old guy in the industry with almost 10 years. 10 years will be in September. Yeah. I mean, I've been gardening for close to 15 now. But it's one of those things where it's like, man, there's so many new guys, but there's still some guys like you that are still kicking it around. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is, and we talked about this a little bit briefly, and I mean, no disrespect for anybody else, but you get it sometimes where you've got people they've been in the industry a long time, and you might say, oh, I've got 35 years experience. Yeah, but look, if you've got 35 years experience of doing average stuff, is that the experience you want? I went on your YouTube channel. Believe it or not, Geoff has a YouTube channel. He's got 1,000 subscribers.
That's right.
He's got more than me. Oh, well, you better have 1,000 subscribers after this episode.
We might get a few.
I will. We'll put it down the bottom of this when we put on YouTube. I watched I watched probably 3 or 4 of your videos in preparation for this. You are not an old fuddy-duddy by any stretch of the imagination. You know, you're actually someone who's That's your kids. Well, you've grown over time. You're innovated, and you've got some advice on there that is so relevant for today. And it's a true 35 years experience. It's not, I've been mowing the same yard for 35 years with the same mower I had before, and I'm stuck in my ways. I'm still charging what you're saying, $12 a lawn that you were getting back in the day. And look, things have changed. You've evolved with it, and that's one of the things that I really want to talk about. Honestly, I've probably got about 30 questions. I'm not even sure if we're going to get through all of them, but I think this is going to be a highly valuable podcast for anybody in the industry, because there's not many people who have the experience that you have. And especially for new guys out there, if you think you've got the shiniest, fanciest idea, you might have a great, shiny, fancy idea, but there's still fundamental business practices, communication, being nice, being respectable, reliable, like things like that go a long way. Yeah. Anyway, that was a long introduction, Geoff. Welcome to the podcast.
Very honoured. Especially the guests you've had prior to me. I'm a little bit humble there.
No, look, I think, let's talk about this. There's some vanity numbers, right? And there's some things that we can look into sometimes that maybe are not so important. What are you looking back on your days, 35 years in the industry?
Yep.
What are some of the things that you're most proud of about having run a small business? You're a family guy, the clients that you served. You're looking back in your 35 years. What do you remember as some of your proudest moments?
Well, I think for the ability to be self-employed and like solo operator was to attend to my family. My previous occupation, I just wasn't home. I wasn't watching my kids grow up, and that's why I gave it away. And my proudest moment is to be able to participate in my children's activity when they're small, and now their children's, my grandchildren's activity. Probably one of my proudest achievements, I guess, is my very first customer 35 years ago. I still have them to this very day.
That's awesome.
When we first started, they had living in quite an affluent area, and I hadn't quite targeted, didn't have the confidence to tackle those type of premises. But I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And this very first customer accepted our quote.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I think last Christmas, every Christmas get a great present. I said to the husband, I said, John, I said, 35 years, just didn't think how much money that you've given me over those years. Like, mate, it must be, I don't want to beat it. There's a lot. And I thought, I shouldn't have said that. And he turned around and looked at me, and I thought, he goes, worth every cent. And I thought,
that's good.
My head just blew up, and I stood proud, and I walked out of there, and I thought, that's why I'm in business, to have that recognition. After all those years, I've had some great clients, but to me, that was one of my proudest moments. And that was through the relationship that we've built over those years of respect from both sides. And I think that's the perfect relationship of a customer and a contractor, is respect and is building that relationship. And that's so important,
Now you're not charging the same rate you were to them back in 1988, were you?
Well, no. They've been. Look, it's a full. My first, back then it was just purely lawn mowing, and after a couple of years, I certainly turned it into a full key operation. So everything from irrigation to pruning to maintenance, it's all under. And mind you, this customer, they had the same pool cleaner and the same house cleaner for not as many years. I've outlasted them, all of them. They've either passed on or rode on ahead or retired. But that's the type of customer, and I mean, it'd be great to have every one of your customers of that nature. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I need a little bit of help from you. Just a small little request. We're in the process of having some conversations with some great brands about sponsoring the podcast. And I need one little thing from you to help with our engagement and to help with boosting a little bit of numbers. Could you please just pause the episode right now and share your favorite podcast episode that we've done with a friend? Just send it to anybody, share it out. Hopefully we get some views. If everyone who's listening to this, and yes, I mean you, if you're listening to this right now, I mean you, could you please pause the podcast, click the share button, send it to someone, spam your friends with it, get the word out there. The more people we get, the more attractive we look to brands. The more attractive we are to brands and the sponsors that we can get, then the more of these episodes we can do. If you don't know this, it's taken me about 8 or 9 hours to do one podcast. And so doing a couple of weeks, it really adds up. So we need that financial support. You can share. Did I mention sharing? Could you please share? Did I say we should share? Anyways, thanks for your support, guys. Let's get back into the podcast. One of the things about the gardening industry is the results. It doesn't matter how good you are as a gardener. If you cannot firstly find somebody who has the budget, and then secondly, and we'll talk about this later because we got to spend a lot of time on this, but communication. Being able to communicate. Some people might call it sales, but I think sales has a bad rap, even though it might be the right word. But sales communication or really just saying, here's how I can give you what you want. And that's the way that I look at sales, and not a forced, shoving down someone's throat. But those level of communication, those beautiful clients who really respect what you're doing. We had a client. I mean, the first lawn I ever mowed for pay was with us for about 7 years, and then they moved on due to I held off on price rises for a long time on them, and then one day we just had to do it, and it was probably about. We should have done about 3 or 4 10% price rises, and it got to a point where it's probably a 40% price rise. And
you're not the only one that's done that.
No, that's it. I mean, that's a common mistake. I've made that mistake probably 5 or 6 times in terms of not like 5 or 6 clients. I mean, bunches of clients, but over the years, been like, there's 5 or 6 of these clients in a group here are undercharged, and you hold them on for too long. And anyways, there's a whole bunch of conversations we can have with that. But let's start. I want to go back to these photos here. If you guys are listening, jump onto the YouTube because this is fascinating. This photo that I'm showing out here, that is your original setup, is it not?
Yeah, the old Ford XC 1977 XC Ford.
What would that be worth today if you still had that car?
$300. I don't know.
Some old collector might like him.
I know I had a bit of rust by the time it was finished. And of course, we got the original Jim's Mowing trailer. Jim's first franchise, I think it's 88, 89 was when I first started. Yeah. And I thought, well, I need a trailer, and I thought, well, gee, that's a great setup. You put the mowers on, 4 cubic meters of storage for rubbish. It was perfect. And back then it was like $1,500, which was a lot of money back then, considering it would have been for
sure.
The average wage, most people are only clearing about $300 a week back then. It was a good trailer, that one.
So probably the same as buying a. Well, if you're talking that, you've probably maybe $7,000-8,000 trailer.
Because that one hasn't got any enclosed for the mowers. No,
it's a very simple trailer.
Open, very simple. Gee, very effective. I think my first year, during winter, we earned really good dough. I think back then we used to get $100 for a full load for rubbish yards. And back then $100 was good. And I think our tip fees were they were huge. They were like $4. So it was $2. Mind you, had to go into the bottom of the quarry, and we certainly accumulated a few punctured tyres.
That's true.
Yeah, but great trailer. And the equipment we had was 2 Honda mowers. They were the first Honda mowers that I think we imported from the States in 88, 89. And I think a Kawasaki Whippersnapper. I had 2. I think there's one there, and a 3-wheeled Kawasaki Edger. But we didn't. There's no blower. Well, there might have been blowers, but I know the guy that I bought these from the mower shop. He was an ex lawn mowing contractor, and so I said to him, "What's the?" Because we didn't have. Don't forget, back in those, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have anything to ask, and because back then contractors, you were the enemy. No one discussed prices. One just, you had to do it all on your own. So I was fortunate to have someone that had been in the business, And I thought, well, I've got to, if I start, I wanted to make sure that I had reliable equipment. I didn't want to start with a second-hand mower or one mower, so I sort of had two of everything. I even had two brooms because I had to sweep the bars. If one broom broke, I'd have another broom to follow up with. But the secret of the business at that time was that three-wheeled edger. The amount of work that created, because it created spectacular edges. That won me a lot of clients. And I know a lot of guys. I can whip the snip quick, and nowadays I use an Atom edger. To me, I mean, I know some guys can edge really good with a whippersnipper. I'm not too bad at it. I can't replicate the finish of an edger, of a powered edger like that.
Look, I'll be. This might be controversial, but I don't think it should be. My brother works for me on occasions. He probably does one day every couple of weeks. He's studying music at university. He's not a gardener, right? This is not the controversial part. He knows that. But he's got a great attitude, and we don't mind having him around. And so, look, when we're really busy, just an extra pair of hands is great. Anyways, him on an edger, on a dedicated edger, can do just as good a job as the best stuff I've seen on the internet with a whippersnipper. And it's like, it's just so much easier. It's so much simpler. I mean, he's not an absolute novice. I don't think an absolute novice could, but somebody who just part-time does it, probably does 10 lawns a month or something like that on a dedicated edger, just doing it properly. Yeah, they're slower, of course, because they don't have the experience. But the finish, I mean, I'm with you. I don't understand. Look, each to their own. I'm not telling anyone how to run a business, but I'm with you on the proper dedicated edger doing an amazing job.
I've like the Atom edger that I've used, like people use the blades. Now, once those edges were established, I actually put a disc on it, on the, and it gives you that nice little half-inch groove, and it really looks lovely, But I know guys, you see them and they're whip snipping an edge that's overgrown onto the footpath. Like they'll be there for hours trying to whip that back. Whereas an edger just whips it up, scrape up the edge, and
with a
you've
shovel.
got a fantastic edge. And when I first started, people go, mate, can you come and give us a quote? Can you come and give us a quote? It was the best advertising I had when I started.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things about the industry is there are so many different little 1%ers that really stack up. And some people who are out there who are saying, well, I don't know how to charge good money, and people always knock back my quotes and things like that. I mean, back in the day, you're talking about the same sort of philosophy where it's like just doing something a little bit extra, people come to you. Yeah. And when they see your job and they're coming to you because they've seen how good a job you do, they don't care about the extra $5, $7, $15. No. Their last guy, you hear it where they say, people say all the time, oh, my last guy charged $40. If they come to you in that, they're already sick of their last guy. The last guy never comes up in that type of conversation,
No. And it was amazing when you did the edge, when you finished the lawn, the first comment you get, wow, look at the edges. They didn't worry about the grass looks nice and cut and everything was tidy. It was the first thing their eye went to the edge. So, and when you walk along the street, you just do it sort of subconsciously. You think, gee, look at that edge. You just sort of, it just makes a big difference, doesn't it? It stands out. And there's contractors that do a great job, and guys are on volume, that can get through quicker. I can't do it. I can use an Atom edger twice as quick as I can use a whippersnipper. I can do long edges. Like I had one of my cabarets that I used to look after. It was a couple of kilometres of edges. Now, there's no way no one's going to do that with a whippersnipper quicker than like an Atom edger. An Atom edger is so quick, you just about run with the thing,
Yeah, I see that as well. Like, we don't use Atom. I mean, the last 4 podcasts or 3 podcasts I've done, the Atom edger has come up in the podcast. And I keep saying I've never used one, even though one of the schools I used to work at had one. Adam, you need to hook me up, all right? If you're listening to this now.
We want a free sample,
Yeah, I mean, I've been using a stick edger for a long time. We had a stick edger at my house. Yeah. It's the same thing, though, as well. Like, just using a stick edger, because you can just run it against the concrete or the, whatever the edging is made out of. It's just quick, smooth, quick.
That's something new. Like I've never ever used a stick edger. I might go out and buy one tomorrow, put on my battery combo. But yeah, I've never used one. I've just always, I guess, crucial habit, but certainly wanted to give it a go.
So I feel like you're quite an innovative person. I mean, I wouldn't. Okay, maybe innovative can be seen as a bit of a strong term because some people might say, like, but the difference between innovative and being stuck in your ways is really what I'm getting at. On the spectrum of never change, very conservative mindset, not in political sense, but in a business sense. Very conservative, afraid of change, all that sort of stuff. It seems like you're actually somebody who, because you just said you're in battery gear, right?
Yeah.
Like guys in their 60s, they're usually like, no, I don't want any of that new fancy stuff. Look, give me the old school stuff.
And to the credit of the contractors on their forums, that's like, I think it was during COVID. I think that's when I started the battery. But watching the guys, a few YouTube guys who are on the battery, and I thought, I'm going to try this. And I thought, well, we'll start off and see how we go, and have a look back. And that's because other people don't. See, back when we first started, we didn't have that. We didn't have anybody to talk to. If somebody got a new mower or a new whippersnapper, they'd be sort of they'd be hiding it, sort of thing. They wouldn't talk. The tip was the place to talk to contractors, and as soon as price come up or anything like that, no, you're the enemy.
That's what it was like. That's what it was like when I started, right? I remember because my first job I ever did was $35 an hour is what I charged. And I was getting paid about $20, $23 an hour or something like that at my job. And I was thinking, like $35 an hour, that should be a pretty good amount there, And it worked out very quickly that wasn't the case. And I didn't have any friends in the industry for years. And I really mean that. And I felt like, mate, I'm talking 5 years, 6 years.
I know
until I got some real friends in the industry because it was everyone was against each other. And it was, what's happening on these contractor pages online. Like, don't take that for granted if you're a contractor in the industry. Don't take it for granted that somebody out there with 35 years experience or 5 years experience or 18 years experience, whatever it is actually giving advice and being like, this is the best bit of kit. Because you guys might be using a whippy and you might think that that's just everything's done. You go try an Adam Edger now that you've heard it and you go, that changes everything for me, just those little tips.
Oh, look, just the amount of equipment, like these young guys, what they're running around with now, just mind-blowing, just the technology and, you've got to go with it. Well,
believe it or not, our most expensive, this is scary, okay, to talk about this sometimes, but if we took our most expensive setup with everything, and this is, I'm not talking about like a hypothetical, if I chucked everything expensive I owned on one setup, but when we go to a school, there's a school we do, and we cut it with a walker. We have a hustler stand on. We have a truck, trailer. On that is also the Honda HAU 216, so Mowmaster cylinder mower, all the edges, whippersnippers. It's about $185,000. And it's like, and I'm not buying the most expensive stuff out there because it's, but like the truck, and I'm talking about. Like the truck was $50,000. They're way more now. Like COVID. Thank you very much. But it's like and this is one of the things that about pricing is that the mentality of gardeners should only charge $50 or $80 or $70 or whatever it is. It's like, well, hold on a second. If you compare yourself to a carpenter, well, let's say a plumber. I've got a friend of mine. His name's Ash, and he installed a tap in my warehouse for me, like an internal tap, so we could hose things down. And he came in the warehouse and he was like, wow, you got a lot of stuff. And I was like, yeah, well, see, that does something in spring and that also does something in spring. And that's another thing we don't use all the time. And we were talking about it. The most expensive thing in his setup was $1,600. I was like, that's nothing. And I realized, look, we're paying for his expertise, but he does not have, as a plumber, nice guy, nice hourly rate, but he does not have the equipment expense that these gardening businesses have. If you're towing around your $30,000 ute with your $15,000 trailer set up and everything like that, it adds up,
That's right. And of course, you don't need to have that either.
No, but it's nice sometimes.
Look, I know a guy. He's pulling in. I think he's 120 plus, and all he does is weed.
Nice.
He makes
smart move. Smart.
He's got an old ute. He's got some hose and secateurs and little bits and pieces. All he does is weed. Just loves weeding.
Man,
he makes big money out of weeding.
We got to get out of this. Well, we got to get out of this. Yeah, this mindset of like it's got to be this, and it doesn't have to be this. You can go out there, and some people are like, oh, to be successful, you have to fill in the blank. You've got to do reticulation, or you've got to mulch mow. That's the only way to be successful. I can't imagine anybody else doing anything else. I can't understand that. And there's a guy out there making banks, doing a great job with.
It's the old story, mate. You've got a skill. You've got something that you're really passionate about, and you've got a skill, and can communicate that well to your client. You can do anything. And you don't need to have the biggest and the best everything to do it.
Yeah. What are you charging these days? You told me before, but I think let me set the scene before you answer the question. I would say that if people were to guess what you were charging as a guy who was in his late 60s, they would say $60, $70, $80 an hour is what they would say, because you hear it on the page all the time. Oh, the old guys, they're ruling. Not everybody's saying this, but it's the old guy, or it's the cowboy, or it's this, or it's that. That's probably what people would think for somebody with your level of experience. What are you charging an hour, Geoff?
Well, what we've done is, we've been lucky over the journey. I've managed to double the hourly rate every 10 years. Mm-hmm. So we started off 15, 20 back when I first started. So we're working on about 150 at the moment.
See, that's awesome.
Now,
and I love that. It's like
a lot of people say, "Oh, well, no one's going to pay that." And all that. Well, I do get that. Trust me, I do get that. Now, obviously, the customers, you'll never know that, and they can try to work it out. And some have tried, but when I give them a price or a package, it's based on that figure.
Yeah.
Now, look,
that's key.
Let's face it. The average wage in Australia is 75 grand. You'd probably pay a guard 75 grand, yes. In my case, I can only achieve 1,000 billable hours a year. Well, the time I take out, holidays and sick and weather and because I've got to travel 30 minutes to my particular area that I've targeted, if I'm lucky to get 5 hours, maybe 6 at the most. So I've got to get that rate to get a nice daily, weekly, monthly, yearly income.
I totally, and I get that big time, because, this is another trap I fell into early days when I was a young whippersnapper.
Oh, we all have done that.
But just because you're fit and healthy and capable,
you
answer your problems with strength, determination, hard work, long hours. I remember this time I was doing a job. Now, this is back in the day when I was a competitive swimmer. I was getting up at 3:50 in the morning, doing my swimming training, going off to doing work. I quoted to plant a hedge. I was probably 22 at the stage, right? Incredibly fit, compared to most people in the general population. Quoted plant this hedge, and I think it was on the corner block of this commercial property. It was a long hedge. I think it was about 180 plants or something like that, right? Really big job. And it was on this slight gradient hill. It was in a suburb called Henderson in WA, which is right next to the beach, commercial area where they have all the shipping and stuff. And at the top of the hill, well, it was a small gradient, nice sandy WA soil. At the bottom, pretty much just solid limestone. And it was like, out of the 180 or so plants, it was in that ball. I can't remember exactly. Somewhere around there, like 150, 190, something like that. I would say a third of them, super easy to dig in. 2/3 of them, I had the Matic and I was smacking it. And I remember this is one of the hardest days I ever worked. And I've run ultra marathons. I did a 100-kilometer ultra marathon. This is up there with the hardest stuff I've ever done. I busted my gut off. I woke up at 3:50, went to swimming training, went straight to the job, and I was digging holes until I ran out of light at 8:10 at night. And I got home and I was throwing up. And it was probably a 31, 32 degree day. And it was just, there was no, And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, why didn't I just go get a mini excavator? Like, why didn't I?
I know.
Like, because when you're 22 and you're strong and you're fit and everything, you just work harder, work harder. And so, look, back to what you're saying. I mean, well, actually, I'll finish the story a little bit, because, you know, I ended up having problems with the soil because the soil just wasn't good enough. These days, I would go to the client, admit my fault. Hey, guys, I didn't take into account that this could be limestone. I'm going to dig out bigger holes. I'm going to hire a mini excavator. I'm going to get some better soil. I'm going to place the soil in there, and I'm going to do a good job for you. This is going to have to cost you a little bit more. I'm going to wear some of that cost, and I'm sorry that I made that mistake. That's how I would handle it today. Back in the day, no communication skills, no understanding about anything else. 22 years old, you just dig holes until 10 past 8 at night. That's how you deal with it. And then you're screwed for the rest of the week. That's how you.
Your philosophy of which I've always tried to do is work smarter, not harder, isn't it? You've got to learn it in the early days, don't you?
We can say that all we want, but I can tell you all the times that I was really dumb. Hey, you know how early in the episode I asked you to share the podcast? Well, you didn't share it, did you? Look, I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed. So, look, here's another opportunity then to share it. You can do that right now. Yeah. Just talk about sharing it and how that would help us out. Anyways, if you did share it, then we could be friends. Thank you very much. Anyways, look, I'm just having a laugh. We will eventually have these proper ads here, you know, people who are really helpful. But we're waiting for the right people to come along. In the meantime, you could just share it. Anyways, sorry, I'll stop spamming you. Let's get back into the podcast. Let's get back to your 1,000 hours, though, because that's a really smart idea. You've actually sat down and worked out how many hours you can work in. Yeah.
Because what was happening is I was sort of just, we all did it. When we first started, we were earning a particular hourly rate from our previous job, and we thought if we just had a little bit on, and gee, we're doing well. You know, after the first 12 months, where's the money, you know? And you've got to remember, when I first started, in my first 5 years, it was really tough because I was running scared. I had a mortgage. I was the only income provided to the family. I had 2 small children starting school. And back then we had big mortgages in our day. So I was running scared. And when you're running scared, you fall into the trap of working cheap.
Totally.
You want the work.
Yes.
And you've got to define that line between confidence and scared, and just, you know, work your way through it. And so that's when I started working out, you know, how many hours can I work? And more so as I'm getting older now, because my whole career I've paced myself. I've never got to a stage where I've worked myself into the ground that I can't get up in the morning. I see too many guys that get out there and smash, you know, 200 customers. They got 100 lawns a week and work 6 till 6, 7 days a week and earn great money. You know, some of these gyms guys are earning big money. 2, 3 years and they finished. It just burnt out, and I didn't want to burn out. Because I entered this as a lifestyle for my family and as a career, but I wanted to go the journey, and I had to work out a way to do that, and that was one of the steps I made, was to work out how many possible hours can I work. And now, as I say, look, 1,000. Like when I was young, when you're younger, you can work longer. You can get more than 1,000. Obviously, like if you're prepared to work 6 days a week and 12-hour days, you can do that. But you've got to find that balance of your body and you know.
What I'm getting at is it's not that everybody should do 1,000 hours. It's that you've started with a considered, thoughtful approach. Going, how much can I actually do? Let's start with that. I was chatting with one of my friends, Dan. Now that I'm going to mention him, he keeps listening to the podcast. He's like, I got another mention in the podcast. But I was talking with Dan and another friend, Richard, and another friend, Jamie, in a group chat. We're talking about Verdi Mowing. I don't know if have you ever done much Verdi Mowing in your career?
No. Yeah. We're not as sophisticated down in the back blocks of Victoria. We're not going to go with the filament mowing and rain-free mowing, are we?
Listen, we can say that for later when maybe people are a bit more warmed up. But
I'll leave it to you guys.
We do a lot of Verdi Mowing. When you want a really shortcut turf, right, and you got the thatch layer and stuff, you can't really compensate by just raising the height because you want it to be nice and short. And so, look, people do want Verdi Mowing here. lawns do get very thatchy here. Let's get a little bit technical. For those guys who talk about mulch mowing, one of the things you might not realize is that in WA, because we just have sand, we don't really have the soil microbes that can break down the lawn clippings as quickly. It still can happen, but it just doesn't. It's just different. It's horses for courses, right?
Yeah.
I got nothing against mulch mowing at all whatsoever. It's just that in some scenarios, I used to do a weekly cut on an aged care facility, and I mulch mowed it for 3 years. This is back 5 years ago or something like that. It just didn't work. It didn't have the same. Anyways, that's a whole story. On that. But back to the Verdi mowing side of things, you get these thatchy lawns. Now, when you Verdi mow, if you guys haven't seen what it's like, it is a lot of work. It's a lot of thatch. It's a lot of lifting buckets and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's a really good job when you've got 3 people. It's a pretty good job when you got 1 person. It is 2 people. It's rubbish when you've got 1 person.
A nightmare with 1, yeah.
And it's one of those things that it'll break you, a 35-degree day. It'll really break you, that sort of stuff.
Sure.
And we're just having that conversation about it. Doesn't really matter about the money. This is the conversation I have with my friends. Does it matter about the money that much, or would you prefer to do less but earn a little bit more each time you're doing it, right? Because you can do that economies of scale, smash it out for a cheaper price. And for us, the cheaper price is about $6 a square meter over here in WA. And so we were talking let's do $8 a square meter, which is pretty close to what we were doing anyway. $8 a square meter. Will it get less? But when we do them, we'll really enjoy it. We won't have to rush, and you don't need to do that many, and just having that mindset of, okay, how many do I really want to do this year? How much do I really want to smash myself this year? Instead of being reactionary and being like, oh, I don't have enough money. I'm going to dig these holes until 10:08 at night. And this is what a lot of this is about, is me telling everybody my bad experiences and stories. And I wish, this is one of the things that I love about these groups, and you probably do too. Like, man, I wish 20-something-year-old Luke had these groups back in the day when he was a novice who knew nothing. It saved my life so much.
Wouldn't it be great to have this page when we first started? I don't know where I'd be. If we had these forums now, back in the 80s.
Yeah. And the podcasts and things like that, all that does.
YouTube's just blown my mind of what you can get.
I love YouTube.
Look,
I love it so much.
I very rarely use a mechanic, because what was the other day? Had a switching problem and with the Hustler, and just got on YouTube, and guy told me about cleaning contacts and stuff like that, and done all that, and Bob's your auntie. It works fine now. Whereas otherwise, put it in the shop, wait weeks before it gets fixed.
Did you just say Bob's your auntie?
I did. I was waiting for you to, bit like Paul McGarry.
It is. I was doing that at the start of the podcast. But Bob's your auntie. I was thinking, it's 2023. I guess Bob could be your auntie. It's a bit weird, though.
Exactly. Well, it's different times.
Still getting used to it.
Different times.
Look, let's not get cancelled, right?
All right. Okay, yeah. Political correctness is very, very...
What would you say? So we talked about your hourly rate. You've been growing that over time. We talked about you sort of being not like, I need to get a better word, but you're not necessarily an innovator, but you're certainly not somebody who gets stuck in the old ways.
Sure.
What else would you say have been the biggest things that have contributed to a long and successful career in the industry?
I think, I've always tried to move forward step by step. Oh, sorry, you mean our industry? What you think major changes have been? You were saying?
What I'm saying is you've been here for 35 years.
Yeah.
You're still enjoying your work. That's one thing. Yep. You're not burnt out.
Yep.
Right. We've talked about that. You've been changing with the times. Yep. So, focusing on quality work, things like that. And also you've been raising your prices over time to meet what the industry is, so that you're not burning yourself out. What other things, like we talked a little bit before about communication, you've talked about diversifying, but what are the other things communication might be the thing that we really should talk on now, like the thing that helps you stay in the industry for a long, long time?
I think so. I think communication is so important, like not only amongst between your customers and yourself, like other contractors and other suppliers, just so many people to talk to and learn from. Like it's amazing how many ideas come up from just chatting to people and communicating. It's amazing, and it's like we talked about the stick edger. Like I might give that a go now. It's something I'm always prepared to try something.
Maybe somebody in Victoria can lend you a go of the stick edger, so you don't have to go buy one, and you might just give it a try. You might hate it. You never know. It's let me give you some. Sorry, you go, Geoff.
No, go.
Well, can I give you some scenarios where we do a bit of a sort of give an example for somebody where it's a bit of an acting role play sort of thing, because you would have dealt with all the tough conversations 400,000 times as a contractor. Can we pretend that I'm a client and I'm going to come bring you some very basic questions, things that you would see are basic. There'll be some new guys on here that go, how do you answer that professionally? How would you deal with that? We don't have to act it out in real time, but let's just run through some scenarios, because I think this is going to be a gold mine for new guys. Here's the first thing. You give me a price, Geoff, and you say it'll be $100 to do this job. And I say, well, my last guy charged $85. What's your typical response to how you would say that to a client?
Well, because I wouldn't say that. So, well, where is he now? He's obviously $85. He must be cheap, and that's why he's not doing it. You don't say that to the customer. You say, look, I understand, but you've got to consider my running costs have increased over the years, and insurances. I'm fully insured, registered, and public liabilities, and all these things come into the working out of my price that I've given you. So, you might see 85 as what it's really worth. We can only charge 100 because we see that as you're going to get quality out of that. I'm going to detail exactly what I'm going to do for that $100. I'm not going to say that's going to be $100. Those dollars are going to be pruned. I'm going to walk that customer through every step of what we're going to do. Because how many times have you done jobs in the past, or guys have done a job, and the expectation has been different to what the customer and you have had. It's not you're not on the same wavelengths. And so that first conversation with the customer has got to be exactly what, and they've got to expect exactly what you're going to provide. And that's where $100 comes in,
So do you get that question much these days? I'm sure you've had it many times over the years, but do you get it as much as you used to?
No, because I'm targeting different customers. Like when I first started, it was always, the last guy only charged that much, of course you reply with, where is he?
Yes,
Or when you're running scared like I was in my first years of business, you'd go, all right then, well, would be all right if I charge such and such, I learnt not to do that very quickly. I mean, it's like raising prices. Would it be all right? You've got to just show that confidence.
Right. So let's zoom in on this one a little bit. So you're saying when to not be apologizing for your price is essentially what you're saying. Is it all right if I raise the price? That sort of wet, sort of sloppy handshake you give somebody sometimes. The firm handshake. This is what it is. Yeah. This is how it is.
Look, the old pensioner, the beautiful old dear might appreciate that, but the majority of customers are going to go. They can see a weakness, and they'll go, "Aha!"
Yeah,
and they're going to certainly sort you out, and that's why you've got to go with full confidence, not arrogant, but just complete confidence and detail, and show your professionalism. And you'll go all right. Not everyone's going to accept it, of course. If they don't want to pay that, they're not going to pay it. And you say, look, thank you for the opportunity to quote, and bid you a good day and walk away. Never ever drop my price. And you'd be surprised by the time you get in the driveway. Oh, okay.
Oh wow, okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's because you showed the confidence. You're not prepared to back down, but you've shown the customer what he's going to get for that. But
you've called their bluff. You've called their bluff, haven't you?
It's poker. We've all played poker. It's bluff. And they're doing the same thing. How many times have we walked into a shop or negotiating, buying a new car or a new mower and trying to, beat them down on price, and it's no different. And good luck to them. But you just show your confidence and say, look, mate, that's what it is. I mean, if you went and bought a new car now, we were looking at the other day. There's no movement in price. That's what the price is, mate. You can't even budge. You know, you'd be lucky to get a set of specialised seat covers or whatever. You know,
Exactly.
They don't do that. No, you know.
Well, they don't have stock, so they're in the position of power. You know,
and I guess. That's like us, isn't it? I mean, we can be in that position too when there's plenty of work around. But, of course, we've gone through periods where there hasn't been as much work, and we'll probably see that soon with the interest rates starting to kick in the economy. And it's happened before, and that's where you really got to be on your game about calling the bluff. Yeah.
Well, let me give you a little story here, because I've got more questions to ask you that we'll go through about running through some basic scenarios that you've been through a billion times. But here's a really interesting story for you. We're telling you before we recorded that, you know, we've reduced our staff numbers over the last sort of 9 months. And one of the things is that we worked on these marketing systems. So we have so many people who ask us for work, and we turn a lot of people away. And that's one of the things that can give you some confidence when you've got a lot of work coming in and you know that you can price high. So one of the things that we did is we went through all of our jobs, and I had a chat with the guy who's been with us the longest. And I said, Elliot, every single one of these jobs, they're a little bit underpriced. You're the one who's done them the most. What do you think they should be? And I don't want you to tell me the price that you think you can get them for, or how much you can raise them without being upset, the client being upset. I want you to tell me exactly what you want. We raised 40 clients, an average of about 25%, right? One of these clients, it was like a $210 job that we were doing with a ride on, but it actually needed a bit of walk behind work in certain areas. And it was sort of like, it was just, it was one of those, it was quoted as only ride on, it needed both, you know? And so that job, we chucked $100 on that job. No hesitation. They went with us. Out of those 40 clients, we've lost 2, maybe 3. Right. And the rest of them stayed on. And some of them, they were raised like that because they were really difficult clients. And we were like, we're not going to just do your lawn anymore. We're going to do everything. So you got to pay us. The lawn mowing price might have been the same, but we would have been like, you know, we're sick of mowing a dust bowl for half your lawn because half your retic's stuffed. So, you know, these sorts of things. And it's surprising because we've been trying to do a really high quality service and be really reliable and friendly and helpful. Yeah. And I think that's gone a long way because people go, look, it's a price rise, but I don't want to risk it going out there and finding some other bozo who's not going to do a good job.
Look, the ideal client base is to have every customer that's fearful of losing you.
That's a good point.
You've got to have that mindset that, you know, get to the stage where they don't want to lose you. They fear to lose you. I had an example the other day. A lady, she was a little bit of a pitter, and it was $200 little garden maintenance every fortnight. I think we're doing. She said, "What am I getting for my $200?" A guy down the road, he said he can do it for $50. I said, "That's fine, not a problem." I said, "Now, because I had the keys to the garage in the backyard, I said, so when he has the keys when he's going to do the job, because I'm not going to do it anymore, what's going to be left in the garage when he leaves at $50?" And her face just dropped and she said, "Oh, no, I'm sorry. And straight away, I talked to him. I said, we've lost the trust. And once we lose the trust, I have to let you go. You know, I'm not going to treat you like that, you know.
Wow. So I think this is a very unique movement you've made there. So what you're telling me is that you sense that they stopped trusting you.
Yeah.
And then you've gone
away. Yeah. And it's the same story. Like I think you mentioned about people raising prices. I've never raised prices to get rid of a customer. If I don't want the customer, I'm not going to raise the price to get rid of them. I'd rather get rid of them and replace them with a quality customer. That's what I try to achieve.
Because you're more focused on the person you're working with, and then necessarily the hourly rate.
Yes.
That's a really unique way of seeing it, because you do find people who just reply to everything. It's like, oh, they're a bad client. Oh, raise the price, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, no. Look, I go to work because I love going to work. I don't not want to go to work.
Yeah.
You work for what? You're 30 of your life. You work. Gee, it'd be terrible if you hated going to work.
Yeah.
So I had bad people around you. I worked in an occupation of aviation where I had 100 staff where it was just stress, and I hated half the people and the bosses and the politics, and it was just frustrating.
Yeah.
I don't want to do all that again. I don't want to have bad people to deal with.
No,
Every day I
totally
want to deal with a nice person. You know, we all want to deal with nice people. And I think we can control that. All right, okay, it might be a few extra dollars less for the week, but eventually you'll have that mindset to pick up the customers you really want.
And I think what happens as well is it's a long-term strategy. So if you need short-term money, it is so hard to make these decisions.
Yeah.
But what you're doing then is if you're running around like a headless chook trying to please everybody, and you know that you can't really fit all your jobs in, and you're just stressing out all the time, the people, you won't build that trust, because you'll always be late, you'll always be rescheduling, you'll always be, and not I don't mean always, but like it's a semi-common occurrence. And then what happens is when you raise the price, or you do have those difficult conversations, it is harder. I'll tell you, the two stories came up to mind when you were talking about that. One was this lady that we've worked for about 3 years, right? Very small block, maybe 110 square meters, 120 at most square meters of lawn, front and back, right? And Elliot, who I was talking to you about before, he's been a gardener for maybe 14 years, right? So he's very experienced.
Yes.
And as a result, he's very fast. He's a smooth operator in that sense, just glides through everything, gets it done. This lady is in what we would call his area. We don't have areas like that, but he's often the one doing it. And she works away. Now, she got sick and she was at home. And here's what happened is she saw Elliot do the yard. 3 years, he's done it. We're 20 times a year. He's probably done it 40 out of the 60 times we've been there, And she all of a sudden saw how quick he did the job, right? And she sends a complaint. Right now, we take after photos of every single job, and she was like, "It was rushed, bits were missed," and we're like, "Okay, I looked at the after photo, and I was like, that's a well mown lawn. Like, there's nothing wrong with that." Elliot's done your lawn he had done it the last 6 times, right? And anyways, she sent a photo, and it was like, it's just a lawn. Like, what's the problem? And anyways, we did a very similar thing to what you just said there, where we said, look, this is how long it takes. She was charged about, I can't remember exactly, but it was $60 or $70. And Elliot, she was like, Elliot there was there for less than half an hour. And we were like, he was there for 22 minutes. We can see when he clocked in and clocked out. That's what it should be for the job. And what we said to her is if you want someone to spend longer on site, then perhaps we're not the best business for you. We're going to put your service on pause. And if you ever need us again, you just get in contact. Yes, but basically, instead of firing them and saying, oh, you should, or having to defend yourself, just saying, look, we understand if the time on site is important to you, somebody else will spend more time on site.
That's right.
But we're not going to send you someone less experienced just for them to be slower. Would you be happy with that? Is that what you're saying? But I think you're onto something there and it comes back to the communication. How skilled are you at being able to communicate to somebody, hey, this arrangement, I don't mean to be rude or disrespectful. It's just not working out.
Yeah. And look, that's the key, isn't it, to a good operation. And look, when you mentioned before the guys that are running hard and have got a lot of customers and they get what we call burnout now. In that 2 years, I've earned big dollars that haven't got time to communicate, and they just go. And look, some guys have done it successfully. I probably, but I can't do it.
I'll tell you another story as well that happened recently. Is there's this lady who we service in another small little block, and they moved to the other side of the country over to Queensland, and we've been maintaining their block for years and years and years whilst they've been away. They got these new tenants. The new tenants are not unlocking the gate for us. And it was about 5 out of 6 services where we rocked up. The gate was still locked. We couldn't do it. We moved on. Yeah. And we sent her an email saying, look, this is really stuffing us up. We got to do something. So she messaged the tenants. She tried to do something. Next time we rock up, it's still locked. And we said, look, we just can't keep doing this. And so you're going to have to find somebody else. This lady is trying tooth and nail to keep us. Now we're going to try and make it work, right? We're not. Well, I'm not saying she's trying and we're trying to avoid her, but it just shows because we've been so reliable for years, and she understands the difficulty of it. And so what we're trying to do, she is going to, as far as I'm aware, I'm not up to date on this, she's going to pay a handyman to change the lock style because the problem is the lock is halfway down the gate and you have to basically be on the other side of the fence to unlock it. She's going to change the lock style so that we get a key and then she can keep us. And it's like they're the little things. I think that's the stuff that when you haven't. It is. And I think that's where you're at.
The fear of losing you. That's what you've created.
That's it.
In a war term,
I think as well that people, I think the contractor underestimates how powerful that can be sometimes. Oh. And we go back to the guy who's trying to be efficient and say, well, for $200, I'm going to do 3 times as much as this guy and twice as much as that guy. And they would look at you, Geoff, and be like, look at this old bloke, he can't keep up with me. But the ladies, some people out there would go, yeah, but I can trust Geoff. And he communicates clearly. And I would give him the keys to my house when I'm on holiday and ask him to feed my fish for me. You know, like it's...
Mate, you should see my year for the keys. The amount of keys I've got to use their toilets to make a sandwich or to... Which I don't.
Oh, wow.
I've got so many keys. I mean, I just don't do it. But that's the trust I've got with them.
Yes, and there's so much value to that. And if you say to somebody who believes in you so much to give them some house keys, hey guys, I've done some maths and I'm going to have to raise your price. Okay, no worries. You've done the maths. I trust you.
I've got commercial properties that very rarely give out keys, and I've got keys to them all. You know, some you know you can do on the weekend where there's nobody around and go at your whenever you want to go. You know, to have that trust with the managers, and it's good. And look, having that philosophy, it doesn't mean to say you're the cheap old guy. You know, that they like as Uncle Fred coming to do the lawns. I mean, you're running a business out of this, and they know that.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good clients. Yeah. So let's. I didn't get to ask the questions. We're already 55 minutes in, believe it or not.
Oh, you kidding me out too.
I know, and these are the best podcasts when time flies. I've got time, so look, as long as we're not holding you up or anything.
No, you're not. Just get a little bit of cramp on my leg to take arm right now.
Do some stretches. We'll have a yoga break.
That's good.
So one of the things I did want to talk about, we'll move on from. I didn't ask all the questions I wanted to ask. Maybe we'll come back on another day and we'll just do it. We'll do an episode on answering common objections.
Q&A.
If you want that sort of stuff, guys, feel free to comment on YouTube or send a message to the podcast or any of the social media posts I put out. Do something like that. One of the things that I did want to talk to you about, I've just forgotten where I was going with that. Where are my notes? Yes. We want to talk about going into winter because I think you've got some really good thoughts about diversifying, and you have to survive winter to survive a year. You've survived 35 winters. There's some guys right now that...
My first year was winter. My first
you started in year.
I started winter.
So, guys, there's some guys here. They're in their first winter, their second winter. They're a bit stressed right now. They're thinking. There's two things. Geoff keeps saying, you got to get the higher end clients. Let's talk about that after this because that's super important. But it's hard to get those higher end clients. I'm coming into winter and I've been burning myself out. I'm stressing out big time. Yeah. The interest rates are going through the roof. Yeah. Geoff, what would you do for a guy who's starting out and he's really struggling or she's really struggling? What's winter strategies?
Yeah. Well, I think one is that you've obviously got some customers. You know, if you started out, you might have a handful, a dozen customers, 20 customers. Now, every one of those customers have obviously got more than just lawn mowing. Like a lot of people don't realise that you do more than mow lawns. When I first started, I said to them, in the winter, like, I said, look, I can do the hedges. What do you do? Do you do hedges, do you? Yeah. Oh, okay. Can you do that? And so I was creating work by suggesting mulching, all the roses need pruning. I can do that. Irrigation, can we get that ready for the summertime, the springtime? Do it now while it's quiet, So there's a lot of work from the existing customers I've found. Look, not everyone's going to do it, but if you put the thought into the customer's head to say, listen, gee, wouldn't that look good for the kids if we built a little sand pit, or if we create a little play area that screened away from next door, we could plant some trees, and just continually communicating with the customer of what extra work we can do for them, rather than just blow, mow and go. That's one strategy I would look at.
I hear this all the time. There's certain people who and look, again, I'm not trying to insult anybody. It's just advice that I don't necessarily agree with for most people. Some people say they do mowing only, and there's some guys out there I know who they do very successful work.
They do,
and they mow fortnightly, and then in winter they like having their time off. They need the break,
and that's fine.
But for me, I always found that I just got bored mowing, right? Like I needed something else. I needed to prune some roses and to fertilize some plants and to do some mulching. And it wasn't like I had to do those things. It was like, man, if all I do is mow it all day, I need some diversity there. So there's a different value to it as well, just not just the money in winter.
Winter time to me is our busiest time. Winter, spring is the busiest time of the year. I'd rather be busy in winter, and I'll take time off in summer when it's hot. 3 days in a row, 40 degrees. I don't need mowing lawns in 40 degrees. I'd rather be earning my money in winter doing the gardening jobs and mulching and weeding and irrigation and plant disease and et cetera, et cetera. Like, I'd rather do that when it's cool and nice, crisp winter days than a 40-degree day mowing a lawn. But everyone's to their own, of course. But I just see so much value in the colder period that there's so much work that can be done. Yeah.
So one of the things we talk about then is, you can diversify, but it's easier to quote a lawn mowing job, I've found, because you just look at it and you've done heaps of mowing jobs, and we measure them these days.
And you're probably quoting to the market too, aren't you? We're like in a lawn mowing sense. If you're a newcomer, you're not going to charge $50 when everyone else is charging $40 if you're starting off, are you?
No,
because you're just going to mow the lawn. Everyone gets their lawn mowed for $40, because if you're going to charge $50, you're not going to get the job. And that's
how do you look at gardening jobs? How do you quote them? I found this is quite interesting. People who come and work for us, they might have 5, 6, 7 years experience gardening, but they've never quoted a job before. And we get them to do the quoting, and they just get stumped and they get really nervous. In the first couple of weeks, they're calling me all the time. How would you quote this? How many hours is this? I'm like, if you think it's 8 hours, quote them 10. And they're like, that's what? Right. And I'm like, just do it. So how do you, if you're doing a job, let me give you a scenario here, Geoff, and let's say you're going to go to Aunt Margaret's house and you've got to do the mulching, you've got to do some pruning, you've got to mow the lawns while you're there, and maybe you're going to chuck some fertilizer. Can you run through an idea of how you would do that? I think it's, again, huge value for new people out there who just do lawns. They're stressing out coming into winter. What's your process?
First thing is, don't give them a quote straight away on all those things, because you need to work out prices. You say to the customer, look, I've got to find out, just check the price of the mulch and bits and pieces. So that's going to give you time to go home. You've taken a few pictures, to sit down and just methodically go through the process of working every step of the job. And then once you've worked that out, it's going to take me 5 hours. And as you say, you might throw an extra hour, 6, and you'll quote it with the hourly rate and the material costs. And then, you communicate that to the customer. You'll either email them back, or you might revisit them. Margaret, she probably hasn't got a computer, so you'll go back to Margaret and say, listen, for this price, I can give you A, B, C, D. But don't do it there and then, because, you might have just come off a job, you're tired, you can't think straight. You get a bit desperate, you start humming and hawing, you become uncertain. Whereas, look, I see what you need. Let's confirm you want the mulch, you want the pruning, you want the mowing. Right, I'm going to get back to you tomorrow. Not next week, tomorrow. I'm going to get back to you at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'll come past at 10, or I'll send you an email tonight. You will get it tonight. You can wait a day or two, you're not going to get the job, you're going to miss, So they'll straight away, you formed a relationship with that customer.
Yeah.
And now, all right, if you've done the job and you're an hour over, you've quoted all the materials, you know what that is, you're pretty good at that. We all underestimate. It's an hour out of your time. Okay, that's not the end of the world. But I do overcompensate. I might say, look, it's going to take. But how many times have you worked it's going to be 5 and you've done it in 3? I reckon I've done more jobs. All the time I've overquoted to the customer. I've come in way under what I thought it was going to be worth. They thought they were getting good value for the price that I've explained. Good value. I've explained exactly what they're going to get. So they're happy, and I'm super happy. All right, not the odd time that I've missed out. Okay, swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Like you pick up one and lose on the other.
But you don't want to win. You don't want to win every job anyway.
No. Well, that's the other thing. Well, my philosophy is if I'm winning, 50-60% of my jobs, I'm happy, But of course, the clients I'm targeting, I'll probably win most because they don't care about the price. They'll look at you and they'll make. I reckon I'll probably explain in one of my YouTube. I reckon within the first 10 seconds, they'll either like you or they don't like you.
Yep, I'm totally with you.
You're dressed, you look the part, you talk properly, you communicate well, and they know straight away. And it's just blah 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 from the rest of that. They'll go, I want you, unless it's extremely way overpriced. They'll just go do it. And how many times you're given it? And sometimes, all right, I can work. I'll say, look, just give me a second. I'll jot down a few figures, and I'll say, right, it's going to cost you $700. Well, that'll. And you go, that's the way. But they're not even thinking price. They like you. They see you professional.
One of the things I like to do. You go.
So you don't have to have all the fancy big truck and everything like that. As long as you're presented well and you've given them the confidence you can do the job, you're pretty well there.
Well, one of the things, and this is really what you're touching on, and this is one of our superpowers, I would say, with the business that we run is, and look, if you guys listen to this, if you really feel like you're stuck, because this might be the thing that's stopping you from going to the next level, even if you're doing great gardening work. The thing is that when you organize a quote for a lawn mowing business as a client, believe it or not, there's about 16 steps of communication or 16 parts to the service before the bill is paid, right? And the bill being paid is the 16th one, roughly. It depends on who it is. So let me run through them for you. They Google and they go, okay, which one comes first on Google? Or they search on social media or whatever. But, let's say Google, for example. They Google, which one comes up? They go looking through. The second point is which website looked the best, right? Or which response looked the best. That's the second one. Then they give someone an email or a call. And it's like, well, how quickly did you respond? They're 3 and 4. And then how helpful was it when you responded? And then, we can keep going, but it's like, okay, you were helpful, and then you book them in. Now, was it nice and quick and easy to deal with? And then when you book them in, did you rock up on time? And when you rocked up on time, were you well presented? You put some deodorant on, even though you were sweaty, and you were nice and friendly and happy, and then all these different things. One of those things, you guys get the picture. I'm not going to go through every single one. One of those things is the price, and one of those things is the service, and about 13, 14, 15 of those things are just general business running, communication, administrative side of things. And one of our superpowers is by being really organized, people don't turn away our big quotes. Not that many do. And you just rock up and you just go, hey, look, we rocked up when you said we looked nice. We got our clothes aren't torn. I'm not in a shirt that looks like I'm, begging for money on the weekends. Like it's, like there's all these different things going on. And then we say for us to do a lawn care package at your property, it's going to be $600 a month. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And then it's all just down to the simple, okay, can I afford that or not? Because if they've had a really nice website, they rocked up on time, that is a superpower. And what happens is everyone focuses on the job, which is great because you have to do a good job, and they forget everything else. And this is all the stuff that you're talking about, you don't necessarily have to have the smartest looking gear, but if your personality is, if you're likable and you're respectable and you honored their time and There's value to that.
And the big key thing is that promptness. Like, you'll roll up at, I'm going to be there I'll never say I'll be there at 11, I'll say I'll be between 11 and 12. You know, I'll work out my roster, or I'll be 5 and 6 or whatever. I'll give them a little time, but I will be there. You know, unless something drastically goes wrong and they'll get a phone call. Never will let anyone down. And I think the thing is, what you honed in on is that promptness, is that, you know, timing of everything, that you're spot on. It's a good comment.
So how do you target and how do you get really good clients, Geoff?
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy. Word of mouth is the best, isn't it? Like, if you've got a stable of good clients, you'll be referred straight on. And, you know, a referral of customers, it's good and bad. There's a lot of expectations when you've been referred, because they know you're good. So you really got to come to the party. So there's a little bit of pressure on a referral. But targeting, we rank number 1 in our area on Google. And we've got a web page. We just target the calls when people email or ring through. We work out what they want to be done, and ask them, maybe they might send a picture. I know the area pretty well, and I know roughly the streets they live in, so I know roughly what the type of properties they are. So you've got a fair idea. If there's something like it's long grass up to my chest, I used to do it, but I don't want to do that work. So I tell them straight away, look, sorry, we're really not doing that type of work, or, you know, can you specific tasks that you're not doing, tell them straight away. You're not interested in those. Look, perhaps if you call such and such high rise, like trees, stuff like that, I'll just say, look, we'll leave that to a tree operator. Insurances only go up to a certain height. Just leave it. Like, I'm not going to try it. At my age, like, I come from a timber industry, so I used to do like climbing when I was young, but I'm too old for that. I'm not going to be climbing.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Well, yeah. You really got to be specialised for that sort of stuff too. You know?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So basically, what you're saying with the high hourly rate, it's I mean, it's the stuff we talked about before about being reliable and stuff. But you're ranking on Google in those areas, and then you're really it sounds like it's a time thing. And I've experienced this as well, where maybe if you want 100 good clients and 1 out of every 20 people who contact you is what you would consider good. I mean, really high end, I should say, because a lot more than 1 out of 20 will be good. But if you want a really high end client and you've got to go through 1 out of every 20. If you want 100, you need to go through 2,000 contacts before you get enough. It just takes time to build these things. Yeah, exactly.
It's taken me a long time. Look, I'm not there. And I'd love to get 100%. You know, I might be 80, 85%, but I'm not. I don't think anyone can achieve 100. If you can, that's great, but it's not easy.
Let's go down memory lane a little bit here, Geoff. Do you remember the first time you ever got accepted on a really big job? Like for you thought, this is massive, I really want to win it, and you won it. Do you remember that time?
Yeah, I do. It took 5 years before I got it. It was a school, and it was absolutely massive. It was, and I was only sole trade on my own. They wanted the whole thing pruned, mulched. They wanted everything, and I went there to look at it, and I said to the guy, I can't do this. It's too much, one man. He said, yes, you can. You can do it. Because they couldn't get anyone to do it. Yes, you can. So I thought, so I went home to the wife. I said, how are you feeling, darling? She goes, well, what do you got? So I said, well, look, I reckon we could do it together, and I reckon if we get another relation to help out, I reckon we can do this. And we did. And I said to them,
that's great.
I can't do it in 1 week, but we can do it over 6 weeks. And they said, not a problem. And we did a spectacular, awesome job. It really came up. And the principal come off leave, and he just could not believe it. And he said, are you interested in taking it over, keeping the place up to scratch? And said, it's a lot of work. I'm going to have to employ people. He said, not a problem. So I employed 3 subcontractors. And we looked after that for some time, from about 3 or 4 years. one of the subcontractors done the dirty, went around my back and thought,
no.
well, I can take this. So I found, well, the principal sent him on his way and rang me up and said, I don't know what you realise, but your staff are going behind your back. I said, not a problem. So I terminated with them and I said, listen, sorry, he said, well, you can keep doing it. I said, yeah, but I can't do everything. He said, no, you just do what you can do. And that was worth, back in 90, just before GS 95, whenever, in the mid-90s, late 90s, that was worth 60 or 50 to 60 grand, and that's a lot of money then.
That's big.
Oh, it was big.
That is big.
But I had to work Saturday. I had to work Saturday and Sundays, so I had to take time off through the week, and that was good because I could go along with the kids, whatever it was. And by that time, that was the stage where my kids, when I used to come home, when they're little, you come home and they go, oh, Daddy's home. And because then they get to that period when you when you open the door up, the only thing that's going to greet you is the dog because the kids are on the couch. So I'd reached that stage and I thought, well, they're not going to miss me on the weekend. And from there, that was great, and that was my biggest, I was really wrapped. And from there, it took off.
Do you remember? Sorry, you keep going.
I said, and then when COVID hit, 25 years I looked after this school. And I got a phone call and they said, we don't want you anymore. I said, and because the previous principal they'd all moved on. I've gone through several principals.
Yes, of course.
We don't want you anymore. We're going to get our own stuff. I said, 25 years, so you're going to give me some time to, no, just don't come anymore. No, thank you. No, nothing. I was blown back, and when that door closed, another one opened. I ended up getting 2 commercial properties worth as much as what the school was in half the time.
Oh, that's great.
So
that's good.
That was the other proud. That was the other massive achievement. Yeah. So,
and that's the sort of stuff that there's things like that happen.
Well, it's the worst thing. Like you lose 60 grand out of your as a sole trader. It's a lot of money. And we're going, oh dear, and then because we had COVID, of course, and then the door opened with these other 2 opportunities. So, for anyone out there that says things are going bad, you never know that other door there might be stuff behind it. You don't know.
Well, my next question from memory lane is: do you remember your first non-payer?
Gee, yes, I did. Second year, and we were going away for Easter. We always took the kids away on holidays, and we thought, well, I got this job on the Friday, and it was a big clean up, and it was $85. I earned $100, I can't remember. And the lady said, listen, I haven't got the money. I'll bring it to you next week.
Oh dear.
Yeah, all right, no worries, because I wasn't thinking straight. And she said, well, I'll leave it in the letterbox. And I said, no, don't do that. I'll, fix me up next week. And because I've done the job and I've come back from holidays and I thought, I know what's happened there. It's a clean up. They're gone. Knocked on the door and I was home. I could never get the money back.
That's a shame.
And I've only had 2, and the other one was
what? You've only had 2?
I've only had 2
in 35 years. You've only had 2. Do you walk around with a gun? What do you do? Do you have like Rottweilers in the back of your car? What are you doing?
The old story of gut feeling. Look, I've got this little knack about people. I'm pretty. I can still look at a person and say, listen, before we start, can we have the money up front? A lot of it, especially I would always suggest like the newcomers, rental, inspection, or leaving, get the money up front. Yes. If they won't give you the money up front, and I know people, look, I think someone said on the post the other day that they wanted all the money up front for a particular job of an old couple. And I thought, well, yeah, it depends on how much it is. I mean, you're not going to ask for $1,000 up front, but for a mowing job,
yeah, like a $70 mowing job, yeah, $200 or something.
Give us $70 and we'll do it. Obviously, a big job. We're talking different things here. Yeah, so I've been lucky. So I've 2 I've missed out on, but other than that, yeah, been lucky.
That's crazy. 2 in 35 years.
Yeah. Oh, mind you, a mate of mine, he got dudded for about 50 grand, and I actually helped him do the job, landscaping, and he paid me. And the guy went bust, and he said, "I got a job for you." He said, "What? We're going to go retrieve all our plants." I said, "Oh," and he told me the story. So we went and took all the plants. Totally illegal, I guess nowadays. I suppose all the turf was sprayed, so it was dead. I think the carpenter come in and took the pergola, unassembled the pergola that he put up. There's some repents, I suppose, but yeah, legally, I don't think you can do that, actually.
I don't think you can, but to be honest, I think it's one of those things. I wouldn't recommend it, no, but I can totally understand why you would do it. You know,
I did do one
similar situation.
I did do one bad thing one day with money like that. I went around to the house and they said, "How much to take the rubbish away?" I said, $100. I said, "No worries." So I've loaded the trailer up, and the bloke's come out. He said, "Oh, look, wife will fix me up. I'm just going down the street." I said, "Oh, are we?" Walked in, knocked on the door. The wife said, "Yes." I said, "Your husband said it's going to." "Oh, I'm not paying it." I said, "Well, someone's going to have to pay it." I said, "No worries." So I unloaded it, left it on the thing. I said, "No, I'll pay. I said, "Well, it'll be $200 now." She said, "What do you mean?" "Well, I got to load it on the trailer again and take it away." I said, "I'll give you a concession. We'll make it 150. She paid me 150.
No, I think that's fine. You called their bluff again. That's good gut feeling. You've got that dialed down, mate.
Lucky. No, look, there's a bit of luck.
Do you remember a time in your career? We've all got these times where we give them the "I don't want to do it" price, right? And then it gets accepted.
Yeah.
How many stories? I mean, you probably got about 50 or 60 stories like that.
Let me list as long as it. You rock up and you say, "Look, I really don't want to do it." And it's like the story, and I don't do that now. It's the same story as putting the price up for a customer that you don't want.
Yeah.
And you should do the same thing for the job. Look, I don't want to do the job. Don't do it. Don't quote for it. No. But when you're young and you're starting out, you want everything. Stuff it, I'll double it, And I go, yeah, okay. I'll have to do it, But no, I won't do it anymore. I learned.
I think there's a good value. There's a fine line between doing it to build your confidence and doing it to be a jerk.
Yeah.
And I do understand. Like if we just say now these days, very similar to what you're saying, in that we can only do a certain type of work. So if you're not in that ballpark of work, we just can't really help you out, and that weeds out all the jobs that you would typically try and do the "I don't want to do it" price.
Yes.
But another thing that's really good with your communication is when you get it over time to build that confidence is to try prices that you don't think you're going to win. And because we have that limiting mindset where we go, "Oh, this is they're only going to accept $80," and then you go in and you say this will be $110, and sometimes people just accept it. So you got to balance those things out, and go.
Of course you do.
No,
of course you do.
Yeah, we want to do both.
Yeah, it's like when you're building up the customer base, like you've been charging $70 for lawns, and your books are full, and you're trying to get rid of those customers. You want better customers. So your next customer is the same lawn. You'll put that you'll ask for a higher price, and if that starts getting accepted, you go, well, the rest of the market can come up to that within the time of your price rising. So you're right.
And I think as well, like you need to. It's really good when you've got a good marketing system. We're going to get a marketing expert on the podcast soon to talk about that.
That'd
because
be great.
That's part of where your confidence comes from, is when you're getting a lot of work coming through, you can be a bit more, not a jerk, not disrespectful, but firm. And just, this is it, take it or leave it. If you don't take it, it doesn't matter because there's 5 other people asking, But that when you're in that zone, it's really good to have a strong price. That's different to what we're saying with just go, "Oh, this is a $50 job. I'm going to say it's $300." Just to give them, "I don't want to do it" price, because you may as what you do, you're not going to win the job, or you're not likely to win the job. And if you do win the job, they're probably not happy, and you're probably not happy. There's not really any point. Just saying, look, it's just not what we thought it was.
And the word will get around to say that, Jeff's too expensive. Don't worry, trying him.
Yes,
The word gets around very. A bad word goes around quicker than a good word, doesn't it? So
it does.
It's surprising how it goes around. And nowadays with social media, that's why I'll never, Facebook, or I'll never never ever went with jobs on Facebook because I've seen so many businesses destroyed by customers. I want someone to mow my lawn. The next minute there's 5 or 6 contractors. Oh, yeah, I'll do it. And then all of a sudden there'll be a comment in a few days. Oh, I don't get such and such. He did a terrible job, and or he's too dear. And of course it goes right through the community. It's very, very careful. And,
Have you ever had a bad review that wasn't warranted?
Yep. Yeah, my father passed away, and I promised first thing when I do a quote for this guy, and I texted him saying, look, I've got a family death and I can't provide the quote. So straight away he went on the review and said, don't get this bloke, he never turns up, and give me a 1-star review.
No.
And I just wrote back and I explained to him that, listen, this is what happened. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. And I'm thinking, it didn't worry me because I'm thinking if anyone's going to look at that bad review, they're going to say,
yes,
I understand.
That's right.
Yeah. No, but I think if you do get bad reviews, you've got to reply back and you've got to give and most normal people will say, I see where you're coming from,
Yeah,
if you don't reply to it, I go, something's wrong with this guy, Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, we had a similar. Look, I mean, nothing compared to what you had with your father passing away, but we had a bad review that wasn't warranted. And we did a Verdi Mowing job, and somebody said that it hadn't recovered, but they left the review 4.5 months after the job had been done. And it was like, well, you would have known 2 weeks in it. And so we sent somebody that we replied straight away saying, look, that's not good to hear. We're going to rock up tomorrow and we're going to try and see what we can do. We left that straight away. We rocked up the next day. No one was there, right? We tried to call and we did everything. And what had happened was the lawn had regrown and then it had died because the sprinkler system had failed. And you can just see that by looking at it. And anyways, we wrote that. Look, here's the photos. Here's the after photo of the job. Here's what it looked like beforehand. And here's what it looks like now, right? Like we can tell. And the other thing, which was great, is one of the things that we've done is every client that gets a first-time service with us for the last 2, maybe 3 years, we call them after and we ask them for a rating out of 10.
Yep.
And we called this guy and left a message and he never got back to us.
Yep.
And so it's like we said that, hey, we actually tried calling you. It was like 6-7 days after the service just to check in and we never got a call back. And we were able to put that down. And I think what happens is when people look at you, what they do is they look at your worst reviews first. They don't care about your 5 stars. They want to see the 1 stars. And if you can handle your 1-star reviews really well, you'll actually turn that. It's like, love him or hate him. We're not talking about politics here, but you look at what happened with Donald Trump in 2016. Yeah. Everyone was bagging him out. Everyone was bagging him out on the internet. And he turned all that negative stuff. I was shocked when he won that presidential election. And I'm not I'm Australian. Like whatever happens in America is sort of, it's, thousands of kilometers away. And I was like, wow, how did he get in? And it's because sometimes any publicity is good publicity and you can turn those bad reviews and all that sort of stuff into something positive.
That's how he's made his trademark. That's right. Yeah.
It is now.
Yeah, good point.
Look, let's wrap this up here because we'll just say a little bit of backstory. I stuffed everything up today, people, because I was helping out. Look, let's just own some stuff. I was helping out laying some lawn and lost track of time. And so then I had to call Geoff and be like, I haven't even told you this whole story yet, Geoff. I had to call Geoff and be like, I'm running behind. Then as I'm running behind, I'm driving home. One of the guys calls me and he goes, we're like 2 meters short on the lawn. And I was like, I measured and ordered lawn. So I've made a mistake there. They called up the turf farm and the turf's like, we stopped cutting it. I'm like, oh, okay, right. Then, believe it or not, I'm in the car and I had to switch cars because I took the truck in and I'm taking the car back. I haven't got my wallet or my house keys. So I can't even buy a takeaway on the way back to my house. And I was like, don't worry. Anyway, so I'm like calling up my wife because she's at home. So it's like, I've got the car keys. She's at home. It's fine. I'll just grab them later this afternoon. And I got home and I was like, I've got to now make my entire lunch. And I said, we originally had it scheduled for 2:00 and then it was 3:00. And then at like 3:15, I finally got to call you. So we could have had more time, but I stuffed that all up. Look, I've had some good time. We're already an hour and a half in. So look, where can people find you? What's your YouTube?
I don't know. It's under McPhee's Gardening. So,
McPhee's
I
Gardening.
don't know what if you look up McPhee's Gardening on YouTube, you'll find it.
I'm gonna Google it. Really, McPhee's Gardening.
Yeah,
let me have a look. You've come up on the internet, as I can see your website here.
Oh yeah.
Let me click
on
videos.
Be on YouTube if you,
yes.
Yeah.
McPhee's Gardening Services on YouTube.
Yeah,
and that's it. And he's got a picture of a red flowering tree by the looks of it in the distance. So you can find that. 972 subscribers. We got to get you to 1,000. 972 subscribers. We'll get you to 1,000. There's 28 videos on there, and there's lots of good advice. There really is. And I've watched 3 or 4 of them, and I can highly, highly rate that advice. You're in Victoria, so if people have got some nice clients and they're maybe needing some people to help out, with some work, Geoff is probably the guy as well in that area. Well, look, I really enjoyed this chat, Geoff, and you're welcome on any time, mate.
It's been really good. We've covered what? Thought of this that you wanted.
I reckon. Look, let me read through a couple because we'll get you one another day. I reckon. We didn't talk about the difference between the 1990s interest hikes, GFC, and COVID. I was going to ask you which one was worse.
Yeah, that's right.
We didn't talk about family versus vanity numbers,
right?
I want embarrassing moments. We didn't talk about that. I did want to talk about the worst job you've ever done. We didn't talk about that, right? Look, we'll have to get you on. Maybe come springtime, we'll get you back on again the podcast.
It's a pleasure, Luke. Thank you so much.
Nice chatting, mate. See you later.
Good on you.